Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a geometry tutorial to share with you today. I'm working on a piece of drawing paper that is 9 inches by 12 inches, and I'm going to set my compass at about 3¼ inches. I'm going to eyeball the center of the page and then form my circle. Now, if your center isn't marked by your compass, then go ahead and mark it as well. We're going to need the center for part of this project. Next, I'm going to set my compass on the circumference of the circle, and I'm going to swing arcs on either side to mark the circle. Then I'm going to place my compass on each of those arcs and swing my compass around the circle until I have 6 division of a circle. What's really great about 6 division of a circle is that it's one of the easiest ones to do. And your radius is the perfect distance to go 6 times around the circle. But we want 12 division of a circle. And so in order to do this, we need to bisect one of those 2 points. So I'm going to set my compass on any of the 2 points, and we want to swing arcs outside of our circle. Now, if your page is not big enough, you can add a sheet of paper underneath your page in order to get that arc, because where that arc crosses is the point that we're going to want to connect to the center of our circle. So I'm using a ruler here just to make sure that it goes from the center of my circle all the way to where those 2 arcs cross, and I'm going to mark the circumference. So I don't need to draw a line all the way through. I just need to bisect those 2 points. Now I can set my compass on that point and again swing it around on either side, which will now perfectly bisect each of those other 2 sets of points as I go around the circle. And as I do this, I will then get another 6 points, and this way we have 12 evenly spaced points all the way around the circle, and that's how we do our 12 division of a circle. Now for this particular project, I only need the points because we're going to be inscribing some triangles on the inside of our circle, but you can use the same design in order to do arcs all the way through your center to get a beautiful floral design with 12 division of a circle. And if you'd like to see that project, you can check the description box below for a link to that tutorial. I'm going to mark each one of these points 1 through 12. This is going to be especially important in keeping track of your design, and it's really helpful for the students as well because it can get really complicated as you start to form your design as it gets towards the center of the circle. The next thing we're going to do is decide how many points we're going to skip before connecting 2 points. I have tutorials on what happens when you skip 1, 2, and now 3. You can check the description box below for the complete geometry playlist if you'd like to see some of these other designs. So I have gone from point 1 all the way to point 5 by skipping numbers 2, 3, and 4. So I want to again skip 3 more points and connect our point to the number 9. And once we go to the number 9, we're going to go once again and skip 3 more points. We're going to skip the numbers 10, 11, and 12. And now we can connect our 9 back to our 1. And now we have made a perfect triangle. We've made an equilateral triangle. Now we want to continue and make sure that all of the points are paired up. So we've gone now to point 2. And we're going to inscribe another triangle. Each time we're skipping 3 points. Whatever number you choose to skip, you need to do that all the way around so that you end up with a symmetrical design. But you can choose any number to skip, and the designs are very interesting depending on what you do. So now we want to just connect that last 2 points. And now you can see that we have 3 triangles, but we can fit 1 more. Once you do the first triangle, it's a little bit easier to see how to construct the next ones. However, once you're done constructing all 4 triangles, you're going to see that it's going to be more complicated to figure out where to put your design on the inside. For this reason, I do recommend that you mark each of these points where you're going to draw your next design with the numbers that correlate with the outside numbers. That way you can keep track of where you want to inscribe your next set of triangles. Now you can go as much into the center as you'd like. The only complication is keeping track of where your numbers are. And the other thing is that if there's even a slight bit of discrepancy on your original construction, as you go to the center, that distortion will increase and you'll end up with triangles that are no longer equilateral, and very quickly you won't be able to construct any more triangles towards the center. Now, because I set my compass at 3¼ inches, I only have the opportunity to do 2 sets of triangles going into the center, and by 2 sets, the first set includes 4, and now the second set will also include 4, but I'm not going to go any deeper than that, and yet we still get a really beautiful design in the end. So here's the part where you really have to pay attention to where your lines need to be drawn. Of course, you can erase. I find that using a mechanical pencil was a little bit easier than using a regular pencil, so I could get some really fine, sharp lines. However, I would recommend using a hard lead over a soft lead. This pencil wasn't, and so as I am inscribing each of my triangles and moving the ruler around the page, there is some smudging that's occurring as my ruler goes over my pencil lines. So using a really fine tip pencil and a hard lead is going to be better. And if you'd like, you can actually do this in pen, but you do want to make sure that you are very sure of where you're drawing your lines, because you won't be able to erase that. However, a black Sharpie or a black pen will really look beautiful with your final result. It will really bring out the design. So this looks really beautiful at this point, and you can leave it as is, but I do want to paint mine. Even though I did this on drawing paper, I am going to decide to paint it with some Stockmar watercolors. So instead of using color pencils as I've done before, I'm deciding to use the set of semi-opaque watercolors. And while I've done this project in the past with different color patterns, I'm deciding to do a rainbow color pattern. And there are 12 points, and I've got 10 colors that I'm choosing from. So for a couple of the colors, I am mixing them to get a gradient between the yellow and the green, for instance, or between the plum and the blue in order to get a lavender color. And for this one, I decided to make it sort of like an arc going into the center. And if I had done another set of triangles right in the center, I think it would have looked really neat to see that color come all the way into the center. I really like the way this turns out. I love the bright colors. I love the rainbow order, and I love the way that it looks like it's spiraling inside. I decided to add some light gray to one side of this pattern in order to give it some shadowing. And then I decided to add a little bit more gray towards the bottom part of my triangles. And lastly, I added some highlights to the other edge, almost to make it look like light is shining on one side of this project. I really love the way that it turns out in the end after I erase the extra lines and numbers. I think it's one of my favorite projects for 12 division of a circle, and I can't wait to try this one again on a larger sheet of watercolor paper. I hope that you enjoyed this look at our geometry project. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video, where you can find more tutorials as well as links to all of the resources. You can find the link to that blog post in the description box below. And if you'd like to see what we're doing for geometry on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram and now on TikTok at Pepper and Pine.